Well, good evening, KZFR, and thanks for that underwriting. And I am the host of this show, Riding on Air, with my co-host, Brendan. How you doing, Brendan?
It's good to be back. Good to be back. I'm always happy to be here on the show, and I'm especially happy when we have authors in the studio.
Oh, it has been so long. And tonight we have Jan Mathews, who's been here before. She is a published author who is now getting paid for her work. Woohoo. And we're going to be exploring, this is your published, right?
Correct. This is the published work.
Well, anything else you want to say about yourself?
Sure. When I'm not teaching middle school, I'm writing poetry. And last fall, it ended up coming together in the form of a book called Often Overlooked. It's available on Amazon.com.
I have that book, and it's wonderful, if I do say so myself. Not that I'm toting that, and I get no royalties. I just think it's a good book.
Thank you.
Well, I guess we'll just go ahead and dive right into it. We have, how many pieces did you give us for tonight?
There's 4 for this evening.
4 for this evening. Okay. Well, tell us about your first one, Paleontology.
Yeah, this first one was written after a situation where I was feeling a little trapped by my situation.
Okay. And I think that was the theme of these pieces, right?
Correct.
Trapped, and I have to look at the mic, not look at you when I talk. Trapped, and there was something else with that?
Labeling,
Labeling.
And how labeling can put you into boxes where you don't necessarily want to reside your whole life.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get into this one then.
Excellent. This is Paleontology. In my head, I'm running, chased by history. I can't catch my breath. She reminds me, gently, there is not a woolly mammoth behind me, really. And I look, and there is. But then I remember, woolly mammoths are extinct. The only surviving specimens are frozen, mummified, encased in ice, kept in huge walk-in freezers, rolled out to be x-rayed and studied by scientists in coveralls and latex gloves. Prehistoric creature, inert and still. He cannot charge the little girl or swing his trunk in her face or threaten to trample her. Dried up now, dissected on the table, I feel a twinge of sadness seeing this great beast, open and vulnerable.
That definitely suits the idea of trapped. That's for sure. This great beast that's trapped in this solid block of ice.
Talk about being chased by your past here.
A little bit.
Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, this is a mammoth we're talking about. I like. That's a really good kind of comparison too. It's huge, but it's no longer there. And there was one part in here that I'm trying to find. I like there's these 2 lines right here. She reminds me gently. There is not a woolly mammoth behind me, really, and I look. There's a little bit of like self-love possibly right there, or it could be from someone else, I'm not sure, but that's what it feels like to me. Like, it's okay, things are cool. It's a little bit of like...
It's that, sometimes you can get stuck in your memories and they become almost as vivid as the present moment. And to either be able to catch yourself and remind yourself where you are, or someone else can catch it for you and remind you. But absolutely important to be aware of your surroundings, historical and current.
Yeah, and there's a nice little paradox there that there is and isn't a woolly mammoth behind this person, because there is. It's just not alive.
Correct. There is the woolly mammoth that chases us in our past, and we get to be the master of our present to determine our future. That was your deep poety thought for the day.
I like it. Well, we want more of those. And I like the ending too, how this mammoth, this sadness, this past demons maybe, or past anything really that's negative or just intense to deal with, ends up becoming open and vulnerable at the end.
I think that's true of many things in people's pasts. When they look at it, the intentions that perhaps have been ascribed to it are really not there. There's what it is, and there's what you make of it. And sometimes what you make of it is a big woolly mammoth.
Yeah, man, that is a wonderful piece. That was Paleontology. And where can this be found?
This can be found in Often Overlooked.
Often Overlooked, okay.
Which is my book. And it is available on Amazon.com.
It is a wonderful one. Okay, well, let's keep on plugging through these. So we have the next one, which is titled Shut. Anything about this one you want to tell us?
This is another look back at a memory of being set aside, put away. And I think a lot of people are separated from the things they would like to be with. And sometimes some amazing things come from that separation that seems so awful at the onset.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll let you get into that one.
All right, this is shut. Metal latch tongue slides along strike plate. My door clicks shut, and time slows. As banishment begins, each breath lasts longer than the previous. My fingers linger on the doorknob, tracing a circle around the smooth edge. I marvel at the lack of a lock. This door, even without a key or a bolt or a chain, remains shut solidly, as if the frame and jamb had become one. Sent there alone to think or to wait or to figure something out, some childish word or whimper or the tiniest moment of speaking my truth led to this punishment. Sent there, alone, I grow up fast, with each minute longer than the last. All I had was time, alone watching, clock hand circling. With each 60-second circumnavigation, I aged months inside my small self. The threshold and what raged beyond it kept me incarcerated, more surely than any shackles or bars. In these long days, I grew old and wise, ahead of schedule. Shut up, shut in, shut down. Until now. I reach for the handle, feel familiar smooth edges in my grown-up hand, turning. I hear metal latch tongue sliding along strike plate. My door clicks, open.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. This almost sounds like a young child being put to their room because they've done something wrong, and then looking back at that, realizing I was never shut in, and realizing that that time spent being punished and locked in kind of gave you good time to reflect on yourself and realize mistakes you'd made, grow up a bit.
Sure. This was written with that in mind for the reader, so there would be something to relate to, because I think everyone at some point or another has been asked to put themselves in their room. And really, it's a self-reflection time. I find myself oftentimes now, it's not usually a room, but I'll take a drive to think about things. I will go for a walk. And these are times when I shut myself away from others to really look inside and do that growing. And I think putting it as a small child who has been put away. I think we do that with ourselves sometimes. We say, you know what, I need to put myself on timeout, and I'll take myself away from the hustle and bustle to work on whatever it is that I need to be thinking about more deeply.
Yeah, I think as we grow older, we don't realize we're doing it, but we all have those days where we're just like, I need to be alone right now. Lock the door.
Sure, it's better
Put on
for
the music.
It's better for everybody some days.
Put on the music and just think.
Sure.
Stew.
I really like a few parts of this too. Right at the beginning, I love. I don't know what that is called. Unfortunately, I'm not.
When you leave spaces between the letters,
Yeah, and
it's
you
called
read-
leaving spaces between the letters.
Spaces between. So for those of you who can't see it, which is probably everyone who's listening right now, the first stanza is metal latch tongue slides along strike plate. My door clicks shut and time slows, and slow is spelled out even longer because there are spaces in between each letter, and that's a visual representation of how the author wants it to be read. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I like that kind of like drawn out. And you do a great job of that, by the way, too. That's something I struggle with. When there's question marks, the inflection of the voice and stuff, so you can hear what's being said and how it's being said. And that is a big part of what you get out of the interpretation, I think. But also, I'm really feeling like, for me personally, when I read this, it felt something akin to being in my own head.
Sure.
The lock, the door, everything's there. I marvel at the lock of the store, even without a key or bolt or chain. There's nothing holding you up in there but yourself,
Right.
pretty much. And that, to me, is just fantastic. And I really do like how we talked a little bit about it being kind of childish, in a sense, at the beginning of this. And then it kind of grows to becoming an adult. I grew up fast. With each minute longer than the last, all I had was time alone watching. There's like this solemn, I guess, growth period in this, and it's really beautiful to me in a large sense.
Thanks.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, these pieces are so good, but I know we have more to get through, and we got to keep. My show's unfortunately not 10 hours long, so we have to keep.
You know, I'm a teacher. I can talk for a lot of hours, but we'll maintain. We'll keep it on schedule.
That'll be the next 8 shows.
No bell's gonna ring, right?
We'll just keep you. I hope not. That would be horrible. Okay, well that was shut. And let's see. The next one that we have is identifying marks. Oh, that fits the theme pretty well.
Well, Identifying Marks was written for a friend of mine who had a child older than my own children, who was struggling with who she wanted to be. So when she was probably a freshman or sophomore in high school, and she was trying on a lot of different personae as she grew. So this came from several discussions with her and with her mother, one of my good friends. It's a little longer than the other pieces, and it is called Identifying Marks. Before the child was even born, the sorting began. Boy or girl, big or small, more like mom or dad. Even prior to her first ragged, independent breath, drawn and let out, she had been put into her group, defined, decided by others, based on the parts, not the whole. As she grows, a funnel cloud of labels whips around her, some sticking to her: early talker, content, late walker. Others hang on unevenly for a while: picky eater, colicky, messy, then peel off into the windy squall, joining those that would not slow down to define her. Pleased, happy, safe, creating space for others to become affixed, mingling with the sticky residue: bright, goofy, girly, delineated, decided by others, based on biased observations of the behavior, not the whole. One sunny, breezy day, a flurry of category tags billow up before her unexpectedly. Surprised and curious, and as if in slow motion, she reaches out deliberately and touches 1, 2, 3, 4, then grabbing greedily a fistful of these sticky brands for consideration, careful organization. She finds most have 2 sides. Gay opposes straight. Popular counters exceptional. Geek on the other side of both witty and cool. She shuns these either-or choices, sorting through to find single, standalone terms, descriptions strong enough to exist without opposites. Free thinker, creative, self-confident, musical, full of whimsy, spirited. These she plasters joyfully on her torso, legs, shoulders, arms, and forehead, determined, decided by her, based on her entirety, seen by others, challenging the assumptions based on parts. Cloudy days stir up a tempest. Stomping around, she finds pathetic loser, unlovable, shameful, loner, ugly, fat, moody, stuck to her feet. She tries to peel them off, but the damp ink leaves mirrored stamps on her skin. With time, they will wear off. These transient suggestions decided on by her, challenged by her as based on others' perceptions, not on her own. A fresh label dances toward her. Mother. No mere sticker. Mother is tattooed into the skin of her chest. Closer inspection shows others there too. Dog person, poet, organic and kind. And best friend, self-aware, lover, and whole.
That is beautiful.
That is hard to read out loud.
Oh yeah, man. Beautiful is a good word for that. We'll start with that.
I accept that label. I'll put that one on.
Okay, good. Well, it's a pretty positive one, I hope. I really do love the beginning of this. All of it's great, but the beginning really hits me. Before the child was even born, the sorting began, because that's 100% true. I mean,
yeah.
People talk about advertisements in magazines and on shows and all this stuff being like, oh, it's just so hard to get away from. But no one really ever super thinks about how oppressive it is just being born, like just about to get to the birth stage. Because when you're there, people immediately, boys blue, girls are pink, and you get this like different differentiation from the get-go.
And when I was pregnant with my children, my friends were aghast that I did not know the sex or gender of my children prior to them arriving. So
I think that's great. I didn't know that.
yeah, no, I didn't know. I opted out. They're people, they're coming, and I'll meet them, and then I'll know who they are.
We'll figure it out then. Man, her first ragged, independent breath, drawn and let out. She's been put into her group. Ah, that kills me. Defined. Defined by others based on the parts, not the whole. That is wildly just, it hurts. I gotta know how else to put that. That's just, it hurts. I love the description, too, that's next. As she grows, a funnel cloud of labels whips around her. Man, this is just such a good piece of going through life. And it doesn't even have to be a full life. Like, there's no age here. This could happen very quickly or over a long period of time. And then I like at the very end, like it ends with this really positive note that becomes, I don't want to say self-chosen, because the mother tattooed there, that's something that's kind of put on there as well. But there's more to it than just that, which is what I mean, that's what it should be for everyone. There is more to it than just what those labels are. And I love the last line, whole.
Me too. I think it's really important for young women particularly to understand that the labels that are put on them by others, they can take off. They're interchangeable, and they're not all either or choices. And I celebrated my 50th birthday this year so far in January, and I've come to realize that there are some labels that you just can't take off. A lot of people take wife off, husband, spouse, they remove those. But no matter what happens, I will always be my kid's mom.
Yeah, I especially love how you talked before about this being a piece you wrote about a young girl in high school trying to figure out who she was. And I love that, what is this? This stanza about a flurry of category tags blowing up before her, unexpectedly surprised and curious, and she just grabs them all and has a look at them and tries to find out which one she likes, which one she wants to be known for. And that kind of describes everyone I've ever seen in high school, because you're trying to be the cool guy or the guy on the football team, or you're trying to be any number of different cliques you see on a campus. Then once you leave there, you realize that's not how life works.
Well, and to be fair, this also could have very easily been written about a male, about a little boy. I just don't know very much about being a little boy because I was only a little girl. Yeah. So
I also like, I think I'd have to say my favorite part. I love the intro. I mean, all of it's great, but another part that sticks out, I should say, maybe favorite's the wrong word there, but it sticks out a lot, is right here. So she finds most have two sides. That to me, it kills me. Gay opposes straight, popular counters exceptional. And I like what this tells about the person you're writing about. Because one, there's an intelligence there because she identifies that there are two, like, well, these are weird phrases. Why does this mean this and this doesn't mean this? Like, there's a coin thing going on here, and I don't want to be on just one side of it. I want more than that. And so it boils down to I'm finding the things that are a little bit deeper than those labels, and that's what I want.
Yes, I think that we have a pretty dangerous habit. I work with middle school students, and we have a pretty dangerous habit, I will call it that, to make them this or that. They are a good student or they are a poor student. They have a family at home that's good or bad. They tend to be these really binary choices that we label kids with. And mostly it's to make our jobs easier. You know, as the adults, we're going to take the good readers and put them over here. We're going to take the students who are still struggling to read. We're going to separate them out. And unfortunately, if we took this a little deeper, there are some labels that are stuck together. So typically students who don't have books in their homes also are poor readers, and then that's attached to, you know, sometimes their income level or their parents' education level. And I think by looking a little more deeply at the whole kid, how about the label that says really wants to learn to read? and focusing on that more than just the test score or just the appearance of that student.
I like even that, what that says about you is you're able to look through that, because most teachers won't. Most teachers are just there to, put in their time. And then
Oh, I
get
know a
out.
lot of teachers, and I think we try really hard. There's a lot working against teachers as a group because our job is very hard.
Yeah.
But when we get right down to it, if you sat down with probably, all the teachers that I can think of,
Yeah.
and you ask them point blank, do you do this? They'll say yes, and they'll say, but I don't like it.
Oh man, that's even hard to talk about too. We'll stray from that conversation because that'll go into tricky waters.
We could derail that completely.
Yep, exactly. Man, this piece is absolutely wonderful. All these have been fantastic too. And I think we're coming up on your last piece for this show.
We are indeed. This one's a little more hopeful, I
Okay.
hope.
Huzzah.
Again, this is a little bit about being somewhere where you don't feel like you have a lot of options and finding them there anyway. This is called the wardrobe. I probably should have called it the closet, because who really has a wardrobe anymore? But the wardrobe's just fancier, and I like the way it sounds. So, the wardrobe. Bare legs extend beneath all the hemlines, hung neatly, packed tightly, forming a barrier, creating a space. Away from the shouting and slamming, she stands perfectly still, hidden in the closet, among the old, forgotten clothes. She holds her breath, then remembers to breathe. Half of her face touches an ancient fur coat that smells dusty and feels soft. The other half rests on a plaid work shirt. It is well worn and reminds her of some other time. She feels the weight of the fabrics, each with a story, and shifts to touch a slippery, filmy nightgown in the darkened space. She imagines the floral print and reaches for it.
I like that piece a lot. I mean, I don't think you would read a piece and I'd be like, I wasn't really feeling that one.
Well, it would be okay if you did.
Oh, definitely not. These are so good. Man, I feel as if this one is talking about withdrawing into yourself in some sense. Hidden in the closet among all the old forgotten clothes, the old memories, things that are buried deep down in there, and then able to kind of change, not necessarily like people, but change times of yourself and look back at old things and put on new things and things that feel comfortable and that are safe, that form a barrier, that create a space away from the shouting and slamming. It is a hopeful piece. I agree.
Well, we talked a little bit about being in your mind and having the only thing being there be you that keeps you from getting out of whatever loop you're in your head. And this is again that presence or that being and that awareness, just noticing that there are other things in there besides an old fur coat or a shirt that reminds you of something, and staying with that. You can sidestep that. You can find something else. You can find this floral yumminess that is something completely different than everything else that you've been thinking about. So I guess it's an extended metaphor of being stuck in your mind and making the choice to pick something pretty or different.
Yeah, it almost seems like at the end, almost reaching for hope, sort
Sure.
of thing, because they find this silky something. They can't see it. They don't know what's there. They just imagine there's floral print there, and they reach for it because they hope that it's there.
Well, fur's dead, and an old work shirt seems like it just seems like an arduous piece of clothing, and something that's filmy and made to be slept in. It to me, it alludes to dreams, and flowers are outside. So kind of dreaming and being outside of yourself. So hopeful, I think, was a great word, Kevin. That was a good pull.
Yeah, thank you. We're coming up on towards the end of our show, and I wanted to really recognize and appreciate the fact that a lot of these have such a really deep, introspective look at like the people within the stories that are being told and stuff like that. And I personally just appreciate that a lot. I think many situations and many people and many personality types could do well with just a little bit of a introspection moving forward.
Introspection's good, and the reason I wrote this book was for myself, to encourage my own introspection, and I put it out there so I could encourage others to do that, because writing it's not difficult. It's really a pen and a paper or thumb typing on my phone. And sometimes it's an image that I see or a phrase that I hear. Anybody can be a writer. And I heard an author recently say, people very rarely feel worse after writing something down. So I thought that was a great piece of information to have.
That is. I was actually going to ask you that question. You are a published writer who is now getting paid for her work. Not by me, disclaimer, just saying that now. But any advice to people who are trying to get started in writing?
Boy, I'm not a big purveyor of advice. I would say read things that you like. Mark up your books if you own them. Please do not mark up the library books. Speaking of disclaimers, make copies. Hand write it out of a book that you like if it's something that you like, because a lot of the things that I have written about have come from things that I have read or things that I have heard being read. And then just do it. Just write. Commit to writing a little bit every day, whether it's a number of minutes or a number of sentences. Keep a little journal. Make a notes file on your phone. Keep a file in your Google Drive. I do all those things because wherever I am, there has to be something to write with.
That's a good idea. Brandon, too, has been published at some point, and so I'm sure he would identify with a lot of that stuff that was just said.
Yeah, I wrote a book over the course of 10 or 11 months, something like that, and pretty much I just committed to myself, got some music, and just said, I'm writing 1,000 words today, and just sat down and wrote until I finished. And a lot of that got scrapped, edited, changed, reversed, but it was something on the paper, and it gave me a direction for the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and at the end you edit it all together, and you get something you can kind of be happy with.
And if you need a jump start, absolutely take a class. There are a lot of free clubs. There are classes at the university. There are classes at Butte. Go hang out with a high school English teacher and ask if you can read your writing to his or her class and see what they have to give you in the way of feedback.
Yeah, and there's innumerable forums on the internet with writing prompts and all kinds of things. I know of tons of different just little forums like Reddit. I know has some great ones where it's just like, hey, we just want to write together. Here's the prompt for the week. Everyone's going to write a story on this prompt, submit it, and we'll all just kind of hang out and comment. And
I think that community is really valuable after you're comfortable with your writing. I think getting to the point where you let it out of your own notebook is a pretty big jump, and I made that not too recently, not too long ago. So absolutely, get your words out there. Don't write them on bathroom walls, but put them out there somehow. There's like you said, there are many forums. Great ways to put it out there.
Yeah, please avoid the bathroom walls one. That's not where we want to go. I think the lesson would be just write and don't be discouraged if it's not something you're exactly happy with, because you can change it. There is an eraser on most things. And keep at it, because it does take time, and it does take thought, and it does take just revisions. But, I mean, if you've written a word, you've written. You're an author now. There's something on paper. So if you're looking to write and do stuff like that, other art styles and whatnot, take heart from these two people who have advice, because it is definitely a fun thing to do. And I guess with that, we're reaching the end of our show. And I wanted to say thank you, Jan, for coming. This has been a pleasure. I think we're doing a two-part special here. So this is part one. And then
stay tuned.
Stay tuned, because the next show after this show, she'll be on again, which should be fantastic.
Next time, Writing on Air with Jan Mathews.
Exactly. So where can we find your stuff?
You can find my published work on Amazon.com. Search Often Overlooked.
Wonderful. Definitely do so. Well, if you want to submit, you can do so at write.onair@gmail.com.
that is write.onair@gmail.com.
And you can be on the show anytime. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into our underwriting. Have a good night, everyone.